God, I'm so thankful that you extend your grace in so many ways to us. And that when we look back, when we look all around us, and even when we look forward, we can see that your grace is there. That it's ready to make up for all the ways that we fall short. God, this morning as we come to you in prayer, we again lift our prayer requests to you. New ones, old ones, and still things not mentioned. God, you know those needs, you know those things that are just sitting on our hearts. God, we pray that your grace, your mercy, all of it would just surround each one. That it would be evident in so many ways. Lord, we love you. May you receive all the glory. In Jesus' name, amen. All right, so we're starting a new series this morning. Some of you have been a little confused about my shirt. Why I have a fork on it. It's okay. You'll get it in a second. You got it? Okay, good. I'm glad all of you are like, I get it. Okay, good. Just want to be clear. All right, so we're starting a new series today called Fork in the Road. Fork in the Road, and this one is going to be about some of those key men in the Bible. So we just wrapped up our series called Herstory, so we were talking about those women in the Bible that were really important, who changed history because of the way their lives reacted and the choices they made and how God intervened in their lives. And so, man, I hope that you were able to still learn something from those women, right? We're capable of doing that, right? Learning from each other. And so this one is going to be about guys, so women, I hope that you're ready to do the same. Yeah. All right, so cool. So here's how this works. So here's the question for you to start off with. All right, you ready? See if I can get your brains going. A traveler comes to a fork in the road. Chase, what's a fork in the road?
Whenever there's two paths.
Is your name Chase? No, but yes, you answered correctly. Chase was asking this morning specifically, what's a fork in the road? So Chase, what's a fork in the road? Yeah, when you come to a place and it has two paths and you have to decide which way to go. Good job, dude. Yeah. All right. So, a traveler comes to a fork in the road. Each one leads to a different village. In one village, the people always tell lies. And in the other village, the people always tell the truth. The traveler needs to conduct business in the village where everyone tells the truth. However, there's no sign saying which one is which. He encounters a man on the road from one of the villages. He's standing in the middle of the fork. But there's no indication of which village he comes from. So the traveler approaches the man and he asks him one question. From the villager's answer, he knows which road to follow. What did the traveler ask?
Is the sun up?
Is the sun up? Okay, I can see how that would help you. That would give you whether he's telling the truth or not. But you still don't know which direction he's from, right?
Well, you can tell by which path he took to get to you.
Well, he was already there. You came up on the straight path. He's just there.
Thank you
Can't
for
tell which one
clarifying.
he came from. Any other thoughts? What other question could he ask?
Was it from the road of the lies?
Say that again?
Which side do you live on, the lies or the truth?
Okay, which side do you live on? You know, Miss Judy, that's actually the correct answer. Yeah, which village, which one leads to your village? Because here's the thing. If it's the guy that's from the truthful village, he's going to tell you he came from the truthful village. If he came from the lying village, he's going to tell you he came from the truthful village, right? So either way, you get to the truthful village. Miss Judy, you're exactly right. Good job. So you'd ask him, which one do you come from? Which village are you from?
But that still doesn't answer the question on which path he needs to take.
Well, he would indicate which direction, which
But if
path
he's lying,
did you come from.
He'll tell the wrong way.
Oh,
It's great, man, I love you.
it works, Kevin.
Okay.
It works.
Okay.
Which one did you come from? It works, all right.
See, I don't have coffee today. I've got herbal tea, so.
Now you gotta make me second guess myself.
Are you not glad this church is this way?
What?
Are you not thankful this church is this way?
Oh, I'm so thankful the church is this way.
Nobody don't know what every time we have.
No, they miss out. You're exactly right. So many people miss out on all the good stuff.
And it's all a blessing.
That's right. That's right. It's all a blessing. It's all a blessing. So, to get us started today, talking about our fork in the road scenarios, what's going to happen throughout this series is each week we're going to encounter two people who were met with the fork in the road. One takes one direction and one takes the other, and we're going to see where they end up. All right? Does that make sense? Okay, now, let's talk a little bit first about the path and where we end up on this. All right, but real quick, my other question for you is what is a real man? Like, what defines a real man or a real person? Where do you go to find a real man? Like, if somebody says, I need to find a real man, where would they go to find one?
I've done church.
You'd go to church. You're exactly right. You would go to church.
That would be a lie. I mean, that would be true. That's real.
Right, right. But nowadays, look, we hear all kinds of answers. Did you say a ball game? Yeah, a ball game or something, right? Like maybe they're athletic or something like that, or enjoy sports. I don't know. There's all kinds of things that we can answer in that situation, right? Church is probably not the number one answer for most people.
No.
But a kingdom man is someone that is God designed and God defined. And so if that is true, how come more people don't go to church to find one? Kind of stings a little, doesn't it? Like, whew. Yeah. If we are kingdom people, why don't more people come here looking? Here's the thing. The principle of the path is this. Direction, not intention, will determine your destination. Direction, not intention. There are so many things that we intend on doing and fall short of doing, right? We just fail at so many different things. We intend on doing those things, but it doesn't happen. So direction is what determines our destination. Becoming a kingdom man, a kingdom person, isn't a line we cross, it's a path we walk. I mean, think about it. In society, there are a lot of people that would say, what defines becoming a man? What defines becoming a woman, right? Like, they usually say maybe it's you're the first time you kill a deer or something, right? Or maybe when you get married or have kids. There's these moving targets that society places on us. Maybe it's buying a house that first time. Like, what becomes an adult? Like, Is it actually when we turn 18, or is it when we make some big choice? The world always gives us a moving target. Proverbs 14:12 says, "There is a way that appears to be right, but in the end, it leads to death." You know, the path of least resistance is downhill, right? It's downhill. It's the path of least resistance. But that's the path that leads to death. Because in order for us to be kingdom people, to be people like Christ, it takes intentional effort. It takes intentional, directional effort in order for us to do something more. And it's going to be work. It's going to be hard. It's not going to be downhill. Matthew 7:13-14 says, "Enter through the narrow gate, for wide is the gate and broad is the road that leads to destruction. Many enter through it. But small is the gate and narrow the road that leads to life, and only a few will find it." Only a few will find it. Look at our little image there. We see the nice little narrow one, right? And then the other wider one that starts to take us all over the place. I'm going to ask you a question right quick. How many of you believe in Jesus? Yeah, most of you put your hands up, right? Because it's one thing to believe in Jesus, right? So many of us could say, yeah, I believe in Jesus. But here's the thing. How many of the demons would say the same thing? Every single one of them. Because they do. They believe in Jesus. Every single one of them. They just don't trust what he says. So this is where that narrow gate and the broad gate differ. It's not hard for us to say, I believe in him. The hard part is whether or not we trust him. Are we willing to give him our life? The power on the path is determined by our decisions. Today, our two people that we're looking at are Judas and Peter. And the answer, or the question that we're going to answer is, what do we do with guilt? What are we going to do when we make a mistake? So many times, especially at church, we want to act like we've never made any mistakes. Do you ever feel that way? Like you just, want to hide some of those things from the past. You don't want to talk about them. You'd rather forget about them. We'd all rather forget about them, right? But some of those things are what help define us and bring us about to where we are. But guilt is something else. Have you ever seen that picture of the statue of the guy that's doing like this right here? What's on his back?
The world.
The world, right? And that's Atlas, is who that person is, and it's supposed to represent the weight of the world being on his shoulders. It's kind of like this, guilt looks like this. Let's say this is us, and as soon as you put something, this one is a fairly thin one, right? If I put this on top of it, what's going to happen?
It's going to fall.
It's just going to fall, right? What happens if I put that one on top of it? There's no question what happens with that one, right? This one, maybe if it's a piece of cardstock, maybe. Is it going to work? No, of course not. It crumbles. Right. It crumbles, it falls under it. Because if we don't learn how to handle guilt, it will break us and spit us out. Judas. Judas blew it, right? Judas blew it. And in such a way that I can tell you now if this is true, if you know somebody, please let me know. Please send me, I would love to get their autograph. But no one has the name Judas, or even as a middle name. Jude maybe, right? But Judas? You know anybody named Judas, or like even has a middle name of Judas? No, right? Because he's known as what? The betrayer. The betrayer, and nobody wants to be named after a betrayer. Judas was there for it all. He saw the paralytic walk. He saw Lazarus come out of the grave. But Judas didn't trust in his heart. He believed in Jesus. He believed what he could do. He was there. He was physically present with Jesus. But he didn't trust him in his heart. And when the courts found Jesus guilty, even though he was innocent, when they found him guilty to put to death, Judas changed his mind. He doesn't take his guilt to the right place. He tries to give back the money, but they don't want it because it's blood money. But what does he do? He goes off and kills himself. He goes off and he kills himself. His path ends in death. He couldn't find a way out from under his guilt. 2 Corinthians 7:10 says, godly sorrow brings repentance that leads to salvation and leaves no regrets. But worldly sorrow brings death. You get that, right? Godly grief is something that has no regrets. No regrets. But worldly grief says it's my fault, and it's not enough to say I'm sorry. It's not enough to say I'm sorry, and you keep trying and there's nothing that you can ever do to make up for it. Then we have Peter. You know that Peter actually makes more mistakes than Judas. Judas is named in the Bible, every time it says Judas, it lists him as the betrayer of some sort or fashion. It says that because over and over again, many people would have assumed that Peter would have been the betrayer. Because Peter made more mistakes than Judas. Peter denied Jesus 3 times. Can you imagine the weight of guilt that Peter had watching Jesus be crucified? Judas didn't even make it that far, right? Judas was done. He had already checked out. But Peter was still there watching everything take place. Can you imagine the weight that he was holding on to in that moment? Knowing that he had denied him 3 times, knowing what he had seen and been a part of. John 21:7 says this though. Then the disciple whom Jesus loved said to Peter, "It is the Lord." As soon as Simon Peter heard him say it, "It is the Lord," he wrapped his outer garment around him, for he had taken it off, and he jumped into the water. Let me tell you what's happening right quick before this passage. This is after Jesus had been crucified. And Peter is still walking around with the weight of this guilt on his shoulders because he doesn't know what to do. He has no way to figure it out or to ask her or how to do anything about it. And he goes out on the water to fish with the disciples, with a few of them. They're in shallow water. They've been fishing all night long, didn't pull anything up, right? And somebody on the shore says, "Did you catch anything?" And they say, "No." and that person says, throw the net on the other side, try the other side, right? So they're throwing over, try the other side, they start pulling in these nets. They've got 153 fish in this net, and yet their nets still aren't breaking. And that's when they realize, that's when John realizes, that's Jesus. And so as soon as Peter hears John say this, that it's the Lord, Peter grabs his cloak because, he's out there fishing without a shirt on because, well, it's kind of normal, right? And what does he do? He jumps in the water. He jumps in the water and he starts running, swimming, getting to shore as quick as he can. He's not helping with the fish anymore. He doesn't care about those fish. Jesus was over there. And so he jumps in the water and he runs. Because here's the thing. Jesus and Peter had yet to have their one-on-one conversation about what happened before he was crucified. The situation ended with Peter denying Jesus and Jesus dying, right? They hadn't had their one-on-one. But Peter wants to know what his standing will be. So he swims to the shore where Jesus is already cooking breakfast. He's cooking fish over some hot coals. And I want you to think about this. When Peter denied Jesus, one of the last times he denied Jesus, what was he doing? He was warming his hands over hot coals. And where is Jesus and Peter standing? Over hot coals again. And here's the conversation that takes place. When they had finished eating, Jesus said to Simon Peter, Simon, son of John, do you love me more than these? Yes, Lord, he said. You know that I love you. Jesus said, feed my lambs. Again, Jesus said, Simon, son of John, do you love me? He answered, yes, Lord, you know that I love you. Jesus said, take care of my sheep. The third time he said to him, Simon, son of John, do you love me? Peter was hurt because Jesus asked him the third time, do you love me? He said, Lord, you know all things. You know that I love you. And Jesus said, feed my sheep. Jesus forgives Peter 3 times over the coals. There's a reason that he specifically asked him 3 times. Because that's the exact number that Peter had denied him. This was Jesus saying, Peter, I forgive you. I'm giving you a chance right now to say, yeah, I love you, to make up for each one of those. He's making sure that Peter knows to bring his guilt to him, and he's going to cover it every time. Every time. Do you recognize that he's paid for that? It's not a line we cross, but a path we walk. Don't die under the weight of your guilt. You can only ask for forgiveness when you understand what it means to be forgiven. Have you ever had this situation happen with your kids where maybe you come home from work or you're not feeling well and they ask you a question for the billionth time and you just kind of blow up at them and you're like, oh, I said stop. Leave me alone right now. Give me just 1 minute. That's hard, right? And we're not meaning it it to hurt them or anything. We're just caught up and wrapped up in our own stuff. But as soon as it comes out of our mouth, there we are feeling guilty because we've just taken it out on them. But what says something is when we can stop and look at them and say, dude, I'm really sorry that I just went off like that. Can you forgive me? There's something about being able to be forgiven when we understand what it means to be forgiven. The thing is, only Jesus can solve our guilt. You know, he comes into our life and he wraps us in a hug. He wraps us up. And he does it in a way that, you know, he doesn't let go. I put a little piece there so it doesn't, you know, let go. And then when the weight of the world ends up on our shoulders again, it's a completely different outcome. It's still just one piece of paper. But it's something else when Jesus wraps around us. We gotta be like Peter and shorten the distance from the boat to the bank. We gotta be ready to run to him, swim to him, whatever that looks like, to go quickly, as fast as we can. Jesus begins with Peter telling him who he is, and then he asks him to follow him again. God does the same for us. He asks us every morning. I want you to notice, even though it fell, it didn't crush it, right? It just fell off balance, because I did not have it balanced well. But Jesus does this with us, right? He asks us every morning, are you ready to follow me today? Are you ready to get up, to go where I say, to step out in faith? Are you ready to run to meet me wherever I am? Are you ready to let me have your guilt when you fall? God doesn't want us to leave here with any guilt. He's ready to meet us wherever we are, whether that's at the altar or in your seat. This morning, as we sing our closing song, I want you to think about how greater still he is. Greater than what we can imagine. Greater than what we face. Greater than the mistakes that we have. If you want to pray, down here at the altar, it's always open. If you want to pray during this song, feel free. Let's pray together right now. Dear Heavenly Father, God, I am so thankful that we could jump out of the boat, that we could shorten that distance. No matter what's going on in life, no matter where we've been, no matter what mistakes we've made, that we can run to you and that you will meet us there every single time. That you will cover our guilt, cover our shame every single time. God, when we're faced with situations that put us at a fork in the road, Help us to be like Peter. Help us to be like Peter. God, meet us where we are. We love you. Amen.